Right. Right.
Well, listen, we've come to the time of our show where we hand over to this man here, his knowledge and the gems that he's been dropping throughout the whole of October, even though we're now in November and officially Black History Month is finished, not with Tony Crossbody. Black history is every day, every week, every month, every year. So please, Tony, what have you got to share with us as regards to our wonderful Black history this week?
So I want to talk a little bit about a slave trade that most of us perhaps are not aware of, or if we are, we haven't really heard much about it. So if we can just have the first slide, please. So you've heard of the transatlantic slave trade, but have you heard of the Indian Ocean slave trade? So we know that slaves were taken from the west side of Africa and transported to the Caribbean and the Americas. But what do you know about the Indian Ocean slave trade? That's what we're going to talk about today. As you can see with this map, on your very left is the east side of Africa, and the red lines that you're looking at are the journeys that slave ships took when they took Africans from the east side to many parts of the world in the east. Next slide. This picture that you're looking at now is actually the Islamic Empire, and there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. So the Islamic Empire basically gained strength in around the 7th century and started off, so from your, as you're looking at the screen from the right-hand corner, right, it spread from the east. Well, it started out in Arabia, sorry, where you see the green, right? That is Arabia. And then it spread out to the east and then came westward across North Africa. And then as you can see, across the Strait of Gibraltar into Spain. And of course, when any empire basically starts making progress, it's conquest. And prisoners of war would often be taken as slaves. Next slide. So back to this now. So the Muslims were heavily involved in the slave trade, particularly on the east, but also across the Sahara Desert. Now, this is something that's not discussed very much, and in a minute you're going to see why. So if you thought that the Muslims look like the Muslims today on television, then this next slide should perhaps wake you up a little bit. Next slide, please. These are the Muslims of ancient times. These are the ancient slave traders who dealt in African slaves, specifically from the east side of Africa, from Zanzibar, where they brought them around to the Arabian Peninsula, to Oman, and sold them into what we now know as the Middle East. Next slide. It was customary for Muslims. Muslims had no problem with taking prisoners of war as slaves. In fact, you could, as a Muslim, you can enslave a non-Muslim if you could make it into a holy war. So many African villages and many tribes were raided and taken as prisoners. Many of them were marched. Get this, they were marched for up to a year sometimes to certain ports to be sold. Oftentimes, many of the people who were taken as slaves would not make it. They would often be left to die, and hyenas used to follow them because, of course, when people were dying, they became prey for these hounds. Next slide. Here is an actual photograph of a particular ship with the Arabs. If you look very to your far left, you will see some men in white. These are the slave traders, and of course the rest are those who were taken and enslaved. Now, many of them, when they were taken, particularly into the Middle East, they had their genitals crushed, and they served as eunuchs in some of the courts of some of the Omans in Arabia and in the rest of the Middle East. Next slide. So going back to our map, this is the East, this is the Indian Ocean slave trade. The Europeans were very much heavily involved in it. The Portuguese especially, and the Dutch and the English got in on the action. But the Muslims did very well out of it. And one of the places that they took these slaves was India. So I'm going to now introduce you to some of your brothers that you've never known, who are the descendants of slaves that have been in India for the last 400 years. So let's run that video. It will be here in a second. But they were taken from the East.
We've still got the map in front of the video.
Yeah, good. Oh, nice. Nice. Hey, Mama. How are you? Good. That's good.
It's the occasion of the marriage ceremony of the communities as the residence of Zakir Hussain, Mogida, at near the village of Jamnagar area and Sabapi Dargah is the place of the occasion of the Lika Muslim communities as the institutions for all the community members of our bodies. President, Vice President, President Vikram Bhai, Vice President Vikram and other members also is present. Vice President of somebody available, and all the occasion of happiness. Now the Maulana is going to Namaz of Maghrib.
Right, so these are the descendants of enslaved peoples taken to India 400 years ago. They are called the Siddhi, S-I-D-D-I, if you want to look them up. So they were taken there, and they are there till this day, no doubt, facing discrimination in India. There are also some in Pakistan known as the Sheedi, S-H-E-E-D-I. We even have reports of some that were taken into China by the Muslims. So there was an extensive Eastern slave trade. It's one, obviously, that we haven't been talked about, and for some reason seems to be kept very quiet.
But I mean, even when you was looking at some of them there, you could see the African features clear as day. I mean, amazing, Tony, amazing. Sorry, continue, man, continue.
Yeah, they're relatives, and the next couple of weeks I will show you their origins, as well as discuss the origins of those who came from the West, and you will see that they actually all originate in the same place. Next slide, please. So this man here is known as Suleiman the Magnificent. He was the head of the Ottoman Empire, which came into power around about the 13 and 1400s. And as the Ottoman Empire swept across the lands that the Muslims originally held, they swept into Africa also and had their share in the slave trade, taking slaves back to Turkey, where they worked, effectively they were used as handymen and craftsmen and so forth. And a lot of them are still there to this day. Let's look at this next video. So there you go. So when you think that your experience is unique, and it's just you and your brothers in America suffering. No. These people are all over the world. And notice, it's the same tribulation, it's the same struggle that they find themselves in. Lack of knowledge of their history, discrimination, forced assimilation.
I'm shocked. India wasn't a surprise to me, but Turkey, that's a shock to me, man. I would never have thought they were. It's absolutely mind blowing, Tony, man.
And there's just one more I want to talk about. It's again to do with the Muslim involvement in the slave trade, and they brought them throughout the Middle East. And this last place we're going to look at now, see if this looks similar to the experiences that we're having. Run the next video, please.
They are still being called by their ancestral names, slaves. Black Iraqis who have lived for hundreds of years in the southern province of Basra say they are discriminated against.
There are traditions in the society. People may say it doesn't exist, but we feel it. For example, when two people fight in the street, one is black and the other one is white. They say X had a fight with a slave. It really hurts.
Sha'ban is a member of the movement for free Iraqis. He advocates for more rights for black Iraqis, like parliament representation and more jobs. He says there's a conspiracy against them.
Why is there no black merchant or a senior black official in the state? We concluded that there's no place for the blacks in the Iraqi society or in the state.
They live in poverty and on the margins of society, working in low-paid professions. Local officials say there's no discrimination against anyone and that the door is open for any group to participate and take their role in the society.
We don't want to differentiate one sect or color over another. This is part of ethnic, racial, and sectarian division. We want Basra to stay away from it. But if there's a big group like the blacks in Basra, they should and can compete with the other sect or groups in the elections.
But some black Iraqis say they are not treated the same way as other minorities.
We want to be like the Christians, the Mandaeans, and other white minorities who have fixed representation in parliament. We, the black people in Iraq, have rights.
An argument that some tribal sheikhs disagree with.
Now politics is free for everyone and free choice. And whoever wants to be a member of parliament or heads the cabinet should present himself to the Iraqi people, and they will elect whoever they want.
On the streets of Basra, residents say discrimination doesn't exist.
The whites are 90% and the blacks are 10% in Iraq and Basra. That's why you find few blacks in high posts and rank, because the whites are more. But we're all brothers and my best friends are black.
We live together and there's love. They are also socially interrelated. There's no difference.
Others say there are some taboos.
There's no exclusion of the blacks. There are some traditions in the society that they too don't intermarry, but otherwise they coexist together peacefully.
And while the varying opinions continues to divide this war-ravaged country, the daily struggle for survival remains a challenge for over 1 million black Iraqis. Omar Saleh, Al Jazeera.
Honestly, I really couldn't help laughing at that comment. All my best friends are black. Where have we heard that before?
That old chestnut boy. And
so, yeah, carry on, go on.
No, it's the same thing. It's the same experience, isn't it? Just a different town, different city. But it's the same old.
Yeah. So you've been taken to every part of the world, and your experience is exactly the same, right? Exactly the same. Look how those white Iraqis said that now we're all in this together. Nobody's treated unfairly. We don't want this talk about division. It's almost like a playbook that's being read out, that you're living in real time, but then you look at these other places where black people are, and it's exactly the same experience that they're having.
Yeah, well, it is the same story all around the world. You know, even in India, you've got the caste system. You know, in certain parts of Latino culture, that you'll see that, you know, the lighter and the whiter you are, the more affluent you're deemed to be. And the more darker you are, the more, you know, you're going to be cast into ghettos or favelas or, you know, poverty, and looked upon as a third-class citizen. So it's right throughout all of the, you know, world history, especially where there's you know, a place where they think that is the whole of Caucasian people.
Right. Colin Allen says, my best friend is black. Sounds familiar? Yeah, exactly, Colin. Exactly. I mean, you would have thought, okay, if there were black people in another part of the world doing really well, right, and great in society, we could all look at that and say, well, what are they doing? What's their template that we can follow? But no, everywhere you look, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. And that, you know, that causes you to smell a rat, right? That there is some type of conspiracy to keep black people in those places indefinitely.
Tasha Minion adds in that they cut off the noses of the pharaohs in Egypt.
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. To stop people recognizing the fact that they were black. Yeah. Sorry, Tony.
You've got brothers in India, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, going right up into China, then hopefully today you would have seen something. And they're all in the same position. Bottom of society, no jobs, no history, forced assimilation, persecution, discrimination, and it goes on. So we have a transatlantic slave trade from the west. We have an Indian Ocean slave trade from the east, with heavy black Muslim involvement in that.
Wow. Well, listen, Tony, you've taken us on a journey all around the world, all around the globe, as regards to where black people can call home. As you said from day one, it's not just Africa, it's not just the Caribbean. We are very much so sewn into the fabric of this particular planet called Earth, and all four corners are our natural habitats, and we must not feel like we're strangers or immigrants wherever we are. Tony, I got to say, man, thank you for again. This you know, it's such an enlightenment to know that, you know, wherever we go, we mustn't feel like strangers, man. You know, it's so important for us to know this.
Yeah, that you have a shared history, a shared heritage with people. If you go back far enough through the DNA, you're probably going to find you're actually related as family, and that is probably why you're being treated in exactly the same way. But we'll go into that in a few weeks' time as we sort of develop this narrative.
And again, sorry, Blossom Nation, you're saying, wow, this is so bad that us as black people are at the bottom of the pile all over the world. I think you need to add in the word treated as bottom of the pile. We are not the bottom of the pile. A lot of the times, as we rightly see, that, you know, we are the diamonds, man. And sometimes we are diamonds in the rough. And sometimes when, you know, when we work on ourselves, we become diamonds that shine brightly. But we're always diamonds, whether we're held up high or whether we're in the dirt. We're still diamonds, always, 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 always. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, oh my gosh, time has elapsed on us. It's been a special one this week. From diamonds right across the world, across the earth, to diamonds right here at home with Marlena, with what she's doing. Thank you so much. Please, please, please support the fund, support the good causes. Tony, final words from yourself, sir?
No, let's you know, diamonds will rise.
Marlena, final words from yourself. You're sorry, you're muted. Sorry, my bad. You're muted.
Thank you. Tony, you took my breath away. That was amazing.
It does, doesn't he?
Yeah, that was amazing. It just goes to show there's obviously something that they're trying to hide from us, whoever they may be. There's a reason why wherever we are in the world, we need to be put in the corner for whatever reason, because we're such a powerful force in this world. And that's something one day, hopefully, one day soon, maybe not in any of our lifetimes, but it will happen, where we will take our rightful
Colin Allen
place.
gives a round of applause, thumbs and fists and fingers and everything, and most definitely. And you know what? Hopefully, we will see some of this change in our lifetime. We've already seen a black president and a dumb one.
True.
All that left for us to say. This has been What a Week. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share. And we'll catch you again next week, Tuesday, right here, same time, 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. I've been Mr. C, Tony Crossbody, and Marlena as well. Thank you. Good night.